Yeah, this one's for the workers who toil night and day, by hand and by brain, to earn your pay, who for centuries don't pass for no more than your bread, have bled for your countries and counted your dead.
You're listening to WLPN 105.5 FM Chicago. You're listening to Labor Express Radio, which calls the only English language labor news and current affairs radio program. News for working people by working people. I'm your host, Jerry Mead-Lucero, and this is the Sunday, January 20th, 2019 edition of Labor Express. On tonight's episode of Labor Express, LA teachers go on strike. On Monday, January 14th, after 21 months of fruitless negotiations, teachers in the second largest school district in the nation have had enough. They have taken to the streets in what is by anyone's estimation one of the most lively, boisterous, and determined labor actions by a union in recent U.S. labor history. At recent rallies in LA, crowd numbers have been estimated at 35,000 plus. Given the district employs 33,000 educators system-wide, the massive turnouts at the rally speaks to the broad support for the union from parents, students, and community members who have come out time and again throughout the week, bringing some unusually heavy rains to show their support for the teachers' cause. At issue in the strike are some of the biggest challenges facing public education nationwide. Class sizes, underfunding of schools, cuts to school resources and support personnel, school privatization through charters. These are the issues of the day for public education across the country, and these are the sticking points in the negotiations between LAUSD, the Los Angeles Unified School District, and UTLA, the United Teachers of Los Angeles. On tonight's Labor Express, we'll hear about the issues directly from rank-and-file union members on the picket lines in LA. And even though this strike is taking place 2,000 miles away, I encourage Chicagoans to take notice and listen carefully to what our brothers and sisters in LA are telling us. Their issues are our issues. Their fight is our fight. I heard repeatedly about how the successful Chicago teacher strike of 2012 was an inspiration to the LA teachers. Perhaps most interesting for a Chicago audience is the fact that LA is ahead of Chicago in at least one important educational reform that we've been fighting for hard here in Chicago, an elected school board. The LA example highlights that as important as this reform is, it's no panacea. We will not be able to go into detail on this issue on tonight's program, but the political fight over the elected school board in LA is at the heart of the current contract fight, and you will hear it referenced directly and indirectly in many of the following interviews. The current LA school board is dominated by individuals who are supporters of school privatization and who won their seats on the board with $9.8 million of campaign financing by pro-school privatization organizations and corporations. Since we have so much to cover tonight in regards to the LA teacher strike, we are going to skip our usual Solidarity News International Labor News segment from our friends at Radio Labor and dive right into the main part of tonight's program. I also want to note that things are developing rapidly in the strike, and as this program was pre-recorded on Saturday, there may have been developments between the recording and the broadcast that will not be accounted for here. Make sure to check the Labor Express Radio Facebook page for updates at laborexpress.org. I was able to talk to multiple striking LA teachers at several sites around LA last week, and I focused on why they had decided to go on strike. Jeff Haney is what is called an itinerant physical education teacher in LA who travels to multiple elementary schools in the district each week to provide students opportunities for improvements of body as well as mind. I spoke with several so-called itinerant teachers, a concept which I find disturbing on its face. It is the result of poor funding of schools and staff cuts which have led certain teachers, especially for things not considered core subject areas like physical education, art, and special ed, not having one school to which they belong but are forced to travel from school to school so that each school has the bare minimum requirements of coverage for these areas. Here's Jeff.
My name is Jeff Haney, and I'm an itinerant physical education teacher for LAUSD.
Now, explain what that means, itinerant physical education teacher. That's kind of an interesting title.
I travel to 5 elementary schools, and I help train the teachers as well as the students at the same time. So I go to one school on Monday, teach about 8 classes, and then I'll go to another school, so 5 schools, 5 days. And basically empowering the elementary classroom teachers to do physical education.
Now, is the reason that you move between schools a funding issue, do you think, for the schools? Like in the past, you had a physical education teacher that was at that school full time, and kids would go, pretty much every day to physical education. Is it because of the resource limitations that you're in the situation like that?
Exactly. So basically, it would be nice if every elementary school had a physical education teacher, but instead the state gives a grant for me to go in for 2 years to a school. They buy us some equipment, but basically I'm I'm there to help the teachers, to enable the teachers to do physical education. But it would definitely be better because I'm more of a specialist if I was there 5 days a week.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you said it's paid for a grant too, so in a way it's not kind of the budget of the school. It's kind of this extra add-on that they've been able to find money for, but it's not really factored into the general school budget.
No, so it's a state grant, and hopefully it sticks around because it could be cut any day, anytime, So, yeah.
So why are you here at the rally with the striking teachers?
I'm here to take one for the team. I'm here to support the high school classroom teachers who have 45, 50 in a classroom, middle school 30, 40. Even some elementary schools have classes in the 30s. And that's my big issue right there. And it's not much about salary. We can ask for a higher salary and take away some of the things that we want. So I think it's more for the students on this one.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing I hear repeatedly here in the crowd talking to people is that the class size issue is the bigger concern. And I mean, that's 40 kids in a class. Yeah, that's outrageous.
Exactly. And when I did physical education at the middle school level, I would have 60, 70 in a class sometimes, and it was just super difficult. But even in the room, 30, 40 is very challenging. So I think, elementary should be 24, 27 cap, and maybe 32 for middle school, high school. Yeah.
The big kind of buzzword in education for the last decade or more has been about individualized instruction, right? That you need to tailor your instruction to the student, that each student has different needs and so on. How do you do that when you have 40 students in a classroom?
That's very difficult. The only time I see big classes work is like in a college situation where everybody is very focused and quiet, and it's children are very excitable people and they want special attention, and it's very hard to give them that when classes are very large. So you just do the best you can. Yeah.
So are you hopeful here? I mean, there's just the rally's been gigantic. I mean, there's got to be. I'm looking down at the crowd below us. There's certainly thousands, if not maybe tens of thousands of people down there. Where do you think this is going?
It's going to be very difficult to get done, but I think it's going to get done because we have like 90+ % of us going strong, going hard, and I don't think we're going to give up on this. So, it's a very difficult situation as far as the numbers go and getting that together. Maybe have the governor get involved. So I don't know how long it's going to last, but I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to battle through this.
Have you been hearing at all from your students and parents of your students as well as regards to their feelings about the strike?
Yes, we've had overwhelming support at the schools I've gone to. I get there in the morning, and a lot of them are out there helping us, buying us coffee, and honking the horns as they go by. And I don't hear a lot of negativity about the teachers. Sometimes there can be false information out there, but I think most people understand that we're there for the students, and we want the students to succeed.
I think that when they do studies, usually they ask people what is a profession they really respect. They almost always rank teachers right up the top, right? People really respect teachers in general, despite the negative kind of media attention sometimes that's been focused on teachers in recent years. Yet it doesn't seem that when it comes to funding and tax revenues that teachers are given the same respect as the general public does.
I agree. I mean, we're not there to be millionaires. We're there to help students out, and when we need that assistance, if we can't get it, sometimes we have to go to measures like this and strike. It's been 21 months of negotiating, and we haven't been able to get what we want for the students, so here we are.
That's a good thing to remind people about, too. This didn't happen overnight, right? It's not like you just were negotiating for a few weeks and then we'll go on strike. No, this has been going on for years now.
Yep, the contract ended a few years ago, and we started pushing 21 months ago, but haven't got to where we need to go, so, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you talking to me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for interviewing me.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio News for people by working people and our coverage of the ongoing strike by teachers in Los Angeles, California. I mentioned at the top of tonight's program that the issues raised in the LA strike are the same faced by teachers nationwide, including here in Chicago. Primary among these for LA teachers is class size, the need for better funding for support personnel like counselors and special ed staff, and fighting the privatization of public schools through charters. You will hear striking LA teacher Sonia McQuistion discuss all of these issues in the following audio. I spoke to her at a rally outside the California Charter School Association on day 2 of the strike. UTLA, the LA Teachers Union, recognizes that privatization is the core issue behind the fight over the future of public education. And it was clear from all the teachers I spoke to on the picket lines that they recognize this as a core concern as well.
Hi, my name is Sonia McQuistion. I am a teacher at Willow Elementary School. I'm first grade teacher. I've been teaching for 22 years.
So you've got a lot of experience working in the schools for all these years. Now, this is the first strike, I think, in 30 years, right? What are the issues that you've seen develop over the last 2 decades that you think have led to this strike?
Well, this is the first strike in 30 years. In '89, I was a student in 8th grade, and I remember that strike coming from the standpoint of a student. But now, as a teacher, there are lots of issues that are occurring within our school. What is concerning us the most right now in LAUSD is that they want to increase class size. And as a teacher, teaching 24 first graders is overwhelming enough to try to meet individual needs. So trying to teach more than that is just too much to ask for to do service to these students.
What are they're talking about increasing class size. To what size are they talking about increasing it?
For 4th, 5th, and I think all the way to middle school, right now they're holding about 32 students and they want to go up to 38. And then high school has already 38 and they want to go to the 40s and 50s. And we all know that it's not going to work. So.
I'm a former teacher myself, and I worked in an alternative school where usually our classes were 15, and that was enough. So I can't even imagine that size.
Another concern for us is that right now we only have school psychologists, nurses, support personnel once a week, and the needs of our students are greater than what that is offering. So again, we also need support nurses, school psychologists on site more than that to meet the demands of the stresses of these kids are dealing with outside of school, and then bring them to school and have them ready to learn.
There's a couple of issues I think you raised in that statement that I want to point out, which is one, there's kind of a common theme both between the class size issue and the lack of resource personnel, which is that students are not getting the individualized attention that supposedly current education is all about, right? So current education is all about meeting the student where they're at, tailoring to their particular learning needs. If you've got 35, 40 kids in a class, if you got a specialist that comes in once a week, there's no way you could actually meet that goal.
Absolutely no way. Reality is against our odds, and not just ours as the educators, but against the kids' odds. And if we want to give them a fair chance in what America is now in education and the colleges and the expectations, we need to keep these classroom sizes small enough to tailor the instruction to the individual needs of the students. And raising class size will not offer us that opportunity.
You also raised something else, I think, in that statement, I think is important too, a kind of broader context of this, right? Which is, I think, in many ways, we expect schools to solve all of the society's social problems, right? Problems of poverty, problems of abuse, problems of violence. All these things get kind of thrown onto the schools' backs, like, you need to solve this problem, and then you're not given the resources to even meet the educational needs the students have.
You're correct. I've known as a teacher, I'd become the nurse, the school psychologist at times, sometimes the mommy just to, comfort the child, the educator. I've even in the last year, for the first time in 20 years, have had to mop my classroom because the conditions are not feasible for instruction.
Yeah, I sympathize. I know what that's like. We're outside right now of a rally about the charter school division within LAUSD, and charter schools have been a very controversial topic. I'm reporting in Chicago where we've had huge charter school expansion. In fact, we just went through the very first charter school strike anywhere in history was a successful one in Chicago this past fall. I hear that they have now the first charter school strike in California history is happening right now. I'm curious, as a regular public school teacher, how do you feel about the charter school expansion?
I disagree with the charter public schools expansion at many levels. I think the demands that they are placing on the teachers are even greater than the demands they are placing on us as public school educators for less income, less health benefits, and more hours of work. I mean, they are working these teachers out. The recycling teachers are coming in and out, and the funds are getting depleted for these charter schools, and yet they're not meeting the students' needs and then taking from the public schools. So it's just becoming a battle that seems right now at no end, and so we need to stop it and discuss it now.
The proponents of charter schools say, well, this is a way to do innovation, and we need to change it up in the educational system, and the public schools are failing, and this is a way to get out of that mess. I think the people that are opposed to charter schools would say, well, all charter schools do is they actually basically just take funds out of the regular public schools and then just make that system have an even harder challenge to face. And oftentimes the charter schools are not accountable. It's a way of undermining the union, that kind of thing.
I agree with everything you just said. And another thing that I right now, remembering that charter schools handpick their students. So, and they are at liberty to throw them out and send them back to public education. And now, of course, their test scores will reflect that, these amazing numbers, but yet that's because they are handpicking their students and exiting those that are not being successful. And then, of course, we're taking them in and trying to do the best with what we can, and limiting these resources and funds are just a bigger challenge that is being created for teachers all over LAUSD, all over the state, and all over the country, unfortunately.
I think you're totally right about that issue of, how charter schools are able to inflate their numbers. The surprising thing, of course, is if you look around the country, despite their selective enrollment, that kind of thing, their numbers are not that good.
They're not. They say they are, but in reality, they're not. And the money are just going to, they're just splitting up these funds. It's a no-win situation for them and a no-win situation for us. So.
Now, there's been a lot of organizing of charter school teachers. We hear about the strike that's happening here in California today. I mentioned the strike in Chicago that was successful recently, and that came after the charter school union in Chicago actually merged with the regular teachers union in Chicago. So there's been a real kind of, upsurge of organizing within the charter school community as well. How do you feel about, charter school teachers being a part of your labor movement, the teachers movement?
Oh, I think it's amazing. We need to embrace, and I mean, we are all here. When it all comes down to it, bottom line is to meet our kids' needs. We all are here, not for the monies, not for the riches. The percentage that they were going to increase, the 6% teacher, was already set at the table. So that is not even why we're here. And when it all boils down to it, public educators, charter school educators, we just want what's best for these kids.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio. It's called the only English language labor news and current affairs radio program, and our coverage of the ongoing strike by teachers in LA. I mentioned that the previous interview took place outside a massive rally held in front of the California Charter Schools Association in downtown LA. I was able to capture some of the speakers at the main rally. Unfortunately, the sound system was not ideal, to say the least, and it made it very difficult to hear the speakers clearly. But I do want to interview a speech by Carrie Rivera, who is a teacher at one of LA's many charter schools. She made an announcement at the rally that electrified the crowd. While Chicago may go down in history as the first place anywhere that charter teachers went on strike, Los Angeles is now the first place in California where charter teachers have decided to strike. On Tuesday, teachers at the Accelerated Schools charter network of 3 schools in South Los Angeles went out on strike. The strike is currently ongoing, and on Friday, a petition was delivered to the charter network's CEO by parents and students of Accelerated Schools, supporting the teachers' demands and calling on management to end the strike by negotiating a fair contract. Carrie was introduced at the rally by another speaker who called out LAUSD management for threatening to penalize students who chose to join the picket lines instead of show up to schools with no teachers in them this past week. LAUSD has told students their graduation could be threatened if they do not cross the picket lines. Again, I apologize for the poor quality of this audio.
Send this message to your schools. Send this message to your parents. State law does not require a district to punish students for missing schools. The district is making a choice. Say it with me. The district is making a choice. Say it again. The district is making a choice. The district is making a choice to punish students who are choosing to stand with us on this righteous fight. The district is on record saying that students would have no repercussions, and now, because it's hurting their bottom line, they've changed their tune. But remember, the district is making a choice. All right, so now, let me bring up Carrie Rivera. She's from the Accelerated School. They're unionized charter school teachers, and they just went on strike today! That's right!
So, good morning, my name is Carrie Rivera. I am a charter teacher. The most important part of that phrase is a teacher. Yes, I work in a charter, but I went to LA Unified Schools. 4 of my kids go to LA Unified Schools. They're at home right now trying to find me on the news. So babies, I love you. It is an honor to address you today on behalf of the teachers at the Accelerated School, Accelerated Charter Elementary School, and Wallace Annenberg High School. I am proud to be a part of such a historic moment today. We are the first charter school in California to go on strike. My teacher group may be small, but we're loud. This is also the first time in the history of the charter school movement where charter teachers, and my teachers are here, stand alongside district teachers and demand schools that our students deserve. Charter, district, it doesn't matter. Our students deserve more. And we're here for you today. We are a charter family of schools, and you're district school teachers, but it doesn't matter. We strike today for one common goal, and that's our students. I'm going checklist today so that my students won't be futureless tomorrow. At my school, my students need teachers who feel safe to speak up and advocate for them without the fear of getting fired at the end of the year. At my school, they can fire me at the end of the year and not have to give me a reason of any kind. They can say, after 9 years, thank you for your service, but you're no longer needed. My students need teachers who don't have to choose between inadequate health benefits for their baby on the way and working at a school she loves. We had a teacher last year who had to quit because it was either benefits for her unborn baby or teaching a school that didn't respect her. She's gone. Our schools deserve teachers who can count on a fair process that ensures that effective teachers aren't dismissed. We don't have basic rights like you. We have no binding arbitration and no due process. I'm risking my job to be here today because come June, they could say, Carrie Rivera, you're too loud, you're too passionate, you care too much, and you need to go. And that's not fair. The students of Los Angeles deserve an education that will help them rise above the circumstances of their birth. They need teachers for that. They need us. They need good teachers who love them, know them, and understand their needs. We need to advocate for them as often, as loudly, and as passionately as we want without the risk that we might have to abandon them as so many others have. Thank you, teachers, for teaching my babies how to be good people and how to be ready for school. It is an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you so much.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio News for people by working people. At the same rally, Myra Gomez, a striking teacher from an LAUSD neighborhood school, talked about the issue of co-location, which has ramped up the resistance to school privatization in LA among parents and community members as well as teachers. We're familiar with this practice here in Chicago, in which a charter school operator moves into a building with an existing neighborhood public school. The existing school is forced to share space and resources with the charter, which is often better funded and supported than the original school. The practice is justified by school districts with their claim that existing schools are underutilized and have space to spare. Parents and teachers of the original neighborhood schools dispute this, arguing that LAUSD management considered things like libraries, special ed rooms, art classrooms, gyms, resource centers, etc. as unused space. Here's Myra describing the situation.
My name is Myra Gomez. I am a first grade Spanish immersion teacher at Grandview Boulevard Elementary in the West Side. At our school, we have large special education program with students from moderate to severe disabilities. Our general ed students integrate with our special needs students in many elective classes. Space is important to our school because many of our students are on wheelchairs and walkers. I am here to share our story of attempted co-location at our school for the last several years. But this is not just my school story, it's all of our school stories. Every year we wait with anxiety to hear if our school is on the list that has been offered to charters for co-location. Offered by our own district. It is a stressful time because if co-located, it means that we would lose classrooms used to integrate. It would take away these special classes by the charters. Well, according to the district, we are offered to the charters because we have quote-unquote empty classrooms. The problem is, Prop 39 does not identify what empty classrooms are. You have identified them, LAUSD. You have identified these empty classrooms to be physical therapy rooms, speech therapy rooms, resource rooms, sensory rooms, music rooms, libraries, computer labs, cooking classrooms, art classrooms, science labs, dance and music studios, and our parent centers. These rooms are critical to our students' learning needs, especially to the special education population. Not only are we losing space to the co-locations at our schools, we are losing resources and funding that LAUSD students need. Mr. Buettner, you say that district has no money and claims poverty. How about you start collecting the $25 million from Prop 39 rent fees that is overdue from charter co-location? Mr. Buettner, you were hired to protect and respect our students' learning environments. Enough is enough. I am here today along with 33,000 educators to tell you to come to the bargaining table to talk about charter co-location regulation now. Ya basta de quitar a nuestros estudiantes sus espacios de aprendizaje. ¡Basta ya!
We need to take a short station ID break, but when we return, we'll hear more from the striking teachers in Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Labor Express Radio, which calls only English language labor news and current affairs radio program, and our coverage of the Los Angeles teachers' strike. Striking LAUSD teacher Krissa Elliott told me something that I heard often on the picket lines in LA. Krissa argues that the push by the LAUSD board to increase class sizes is part of a strategy to make neighborhood schools so unattractive that more parents will opt to send their kids to charter schools, increasing the rate of privatization. It is an argument that is bolstered by the fact that the majority of the LAUSD school board is openly pro-charter and received almost $10 million in campaign funding from charter operators, pro-charter organizations, and corporations in the last school board elections. This is a cautionary tale for public school reform advocates in Chicago. The fight in Chicago for an elected school board is an important and necessary fight, but if we get an elected school board, we'll still need to struggle to ensure that the board is not controlled by pro-school privatization interests.
Hi, my name is Krissa Elliott, and I teach a 4-5 combination class at Playa del Rey Elementary.
Now, like most of the teachers out here, I know you're really concerned about class sizes, and we were talking just a minute ago, and you said, I think, something really important about what you think might be behind this push for bigger and bigger class sizes within LAUSD.
Many teachers feel that the Board of Education and our superintendent have a charter agenda. And the increase in class sizes, which they're continuing to push, makes parents leave our home school public education schools because the charter schools have promised lower class sizes. So when you're raising a middle school to 46 kids in a class, in a math or English class, they don't want to go to a local LAUSD public school. They want to leave and go to a charter school. They promise lower class sizes. They don't necessarily deliver their promises. However, that's what the public thinks.
Right. Yeah. There seems to be like a vicious cycle here with privatization, where they under-resource the local public school. They then open up, charter expansion. Funds go to those charter schools, and then it even further, reduces the ability of the resources at the local public school.
They've cut all the art. They've cut instruments. They've cut drama. They've cut all these curricular areas that require classrooms and require buildings. And because they've cut those teachers and those classes, they now have available classrooms, available buildings for the charters to move into. So you have many schools, hundreds, with charters on the campus operating in those schools because LAUSD, our board, our superintendent, has cut funding to extracurricular activities.
Yeah, that's this whole co-location issue that you're mentioning, and that was mentioned in the speeches here today. This is the same thing was going on in Chicago, where they were saying a school is underutilized, that there was room for them to move in a private school into that building. But of course, the way they were counting was exactly what you're saying, which is they were taking out the library and then deciding that there's an extra room here.
We don't have a fight against charter teachers, and I know a charter school went on strike today, and LAUSD they walked out. We don't have a fight with the charter teachers. We have a fight with the fact that our board of director, our school board, and our administration, our superintendent is not protecting our jobs and our classrooms and our students and allowing them to go and pushing them to go to privately owned organizations and charters, which we feel back them, which we feel are funding them, which we feel have helped them give themselves huge raises to allow the continuing depletion of resources at local public elementary schools, high schools, and middle schools.
Yeah, that was well said. And and again in Chicago, you guys here are having the first California charter school teacher strike. Chicago was the first charter school strike anywhere back in the fall, and a successful one. And that also I think was successful because the charter school union merged with the teachers union in Chicago to bring those forces together. So I think that's where we're at now, right? Which is teachers recognize that we have to unite across the different schools.
Right. We want parents to have choices, but we also want parents to have informed choices. And the grass is always greener. The local public school, we are an amazing organization. We are an amazing school, Playa del Rey. We have amazing teachers throughout the district, but what they're putting out there, the public believes, is that we cannot educate them adequately, and we can. The district, though, has to give us the resources, has to give us the money to do that.
I do want to point out, too, that what you're saying about the fact that the school board here is very pro-charter school, very pro-privatization, that's not a secret. That is an open, publicly known thing, right? It's been said very openly by members of the school board, right? So this idea that they would use expanded class sizes to basically encourage privatization is not really that hard to imagine given what we know about where the school board stands.
The superintendent and many of the board members on the school board now were funded. Their campaigns were funded by charter school privatizers. Right. So I mean it's hand in hand. That's how we feel.
Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio News for people by working people, and our coverage of the ongoing teacher strike in Los Angeles, California. Teachers went out on strike last Tuesday, and as of the recording of this program on Saturday, the strike did not appear to be ending anytime soon. One of the picket lines I attended last week was outside Hollywood High School. LAUSD not only includes schools in the city of Los Angeles, but some of the surrounding communities like Hollywood. In the popular imagination of many, the name Hollywood conjures up images of glamour and movie celebrities. But just like in any town, there's a struggling working class in Hollywood whose children attend neighborhood public schools and teachers who struggle to educate these children with limited resources. It was certainly not a glamorous day on the picket lines at Hollywood High as the rare pouring rain soaked all in attendance, including teachers, students, and their supporters, especially members of SAG-AFTRA, the union that represents actors and others in the entertainment industry, which was out in force at the picket lines. I spoke with Hollywood teacher Lee Tumula. Lee was around for the last teacher strike 30 years ago.
My name is Lee Tuwamalat, and I teach science at Hollywood High School.
So why are you guys out here on the picket line today?
We're here for our students. They're offering us a raise, and if that's all we wanted, we'd have been done with this last summer. We need smaller class sizes. That's all there is to it here at the high school. And at elementary schools, they need less testing. There are schools that don't have librarians, and their libraries are closed. There are schools that don't have nurses on a daily basis. That has to change.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing repeatedly. I was down at the rally downtown today outside the charter school division offices, and class sizes keeps coming up over and over again. I'm hearing about like 40 students.
I have 41 in an honors physics class, and that's there are classes there are English teachers with 45. And it shouldn't be.
And the buzzword in education for the last decade or more now, right, has been individualized instruction, right? That you're supposed to try to tailor your instruction to the student. Talk about talk about what that's like with 40 students.
It's very difficult. What you do is you just try to get those that are obviously falling behind first. It's sort of a triage kind of a thing, But you can't really do the job like you're supposed to with that many students.
I heard something interesting from a teacher earlier today, which she said that, the school board is known to be very pro-privatization, pro-charter expansion, and she kind of feels like the push for increased class sizes is almost like a set you have to fail kind of situation where it increases the possibility of privatization.
Not only that, it increases the number of vacant classrooms in schools and allows charters to co-locate, and it's a strategy. Yeah.
And you also mentioned the issue of the lack of resources, other the backup person like the librarians and the specialists and so on. That I was talking to somebody today who says that they only have their special ed person like once a week or something like that.
Sure, depending on the size of the school, the number of students. There are itinerant teachers that just travel from campus to campus to try to cover it all. They've been slowly cutting back everything for years now, since the recession. And they're not bringing things back. The recession is over. It's time to bring things back.
I mean, just the title itinerant teacher, I think, tells you something, right? Just that title itinerant teacher.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Go ahead.
How long have you been teaching?
This is my 33rd year.
Oh, so you've been with the school since a long time. In fact, you were here, I guess, one of the few probably around that was here the last strike.
Right, 89. I believe it was May. Yeah.
What were the issues back then? Do you remember what the main issue?
It was strictly pay. When I started with the district, I was making about $19,000 a year, and the top end of the salary was I can't recall, but they wanted a 10% raise and they got it.
And what is the average salary now for a teacher here in LA?
Top of my head, I couldn't tell you. I don't know the average. I know that they start in the high 40s maybe and cap out in around 80.
And that's not a lot of money, particularly if you're living in LA, right? I mean, that's.
Yeah, when you're looking at apartments here locally, go for as much as $3,500 a month for 2-bedroom.
But as you said, I think most of the teachers out here, if it was just a pay issue, they probably wouldn't be out here.
Right.
It's the class sizes and the resources.
Right. We need the resources to do our job properly, and the students deserve it. Our working conditions are their learning conditions, and those conditions are not good right now.
Yeah, I heard somebody talking on the radio this morning, commentator saying, they're pushing for a pay increase, but over the years they've gotten great benefits, and that's been kind of a trade-off for the pay.
That started in the 70s. In the very first strike, they had a choice between a pretty sweet pay raise or the benefits, and they took the benefits. And if you think about over the years how much that would have been worth in salary, that's the sacrifice they made. That was the promise they made to me when I started with the district, and that's why I'm still here and commuting an hour each way from home. I could have transferred out of the district, but I would have lost those benefits.
But I think that also, basically ignores the fact of what we're just saying, which is that that's not the main issue even in the strike anyway.
Right. Well, they want to make it that. The raise they're offering us is contingent on new teachers not receiving the same benefits. They want us to sell them short.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard about that part too, so that's really concerning.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I don't want to do. The retail clerks did that in the 90s, and it's the old timers are making a decent living, and the new ones, the new workers, are struggling.
Those two-tier systems are just disasters for unions, right? Because they basically set people against each other within the same local.
The new people have to pay the union dues, and then they say, well, now I'm not even making minimum wage because of the union. Sure, that's a way to bust a union. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Sure, thank you.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio, Chicago's only English language labor news and current affairs radio program, and our coverage of the Los Angeles teachers' strike. I also spoke with a couple of Hollywood High students who had joined their teachers on the picket lines and asked why they were there.
So my name's Julissa, and I go to Hollywood High School.
Hi, my name's Ariana. I also go to Hollywood High School.
Now, you're out here today with the teachers on their picket line. Why did you decide to come out today?
I decided to come out because throughout my whole high school and elementary career, I've been in school, every single teacher that's been with me and that I've had have always supported me in my decisions. And most of these teachers, they don't even know it, but they're the reason why I'm still in school and why I keep going every single day. They've really supported me through a lot.
Yeah, exactly. They're always here to support us. We're here to support them today. They're here doing this without pay. It's not about the money. It's about us and our education.
A lot of teachers are telling me that their biggest concern is class sizes. Is that something that you've seen at the school?
Yeah, my first period, we have history, economics, and there was 45 students in that class, so we had to end up sharing one desk, a small desk for 2 students. And it just really impacted the way that we work, the way that the classroom just coordinated and everything.
Yeah, class sizes is definitely a big issue. They're always overbooked, overfilled, And then second semester, teachers are always hoping that they switch from other classes so that we get more seats, or we have to ask the plant manager to bring in more chairs just so that students can actually sit down. Like in my AP Environmental Science class, that's how it was in the beginning of the year.
You talk about how crowded the classroom is because of the class size issue. I also assume that means that you have limited time to have one-on-one with the teachers.
Yeah, we really try to communicate with the teachers one-on-one during nutrition and lunch, and that's if we can. Also with our college counselors, that's if we can, because we have limited resources at this point. So it's really hard to get to know the teacher one-on-one, but we're lucky that our teachers actually want to get to know us, so they put in the time to get to know us individually and just talk to us about college and our future and everything.
Exactly, like nutrition and lunch are their break times too, but that's like the only time that we can actually talk to them. So I'm really grateful that a lot of teachers open up their classroom during lunch so we can have conversations one-on-one about grades or something that we don't understand. They encourage us to go ask them questions, and that's really nice.
So we're in Hollywood, California here, and of course, most people around the country, they think of Hollywood, they think of the Hollywood sign, or they think of movie stars, something like that. But you guys live here, right?
Yes.
There's another side of Hollywood that maybe people don't see, is that right?
Yeah, there is definitely another side. Like, it's not just movie stars and celebrities. There's a lot more to Hollywood than just that.
Yep, it's just like a regular city, and it's funny because we go to Hollywood High, and when you tell people that don't live in Hollywood or regular LA, they think it's very glamorous, but it's just a regular LAUSD school, just like everybody else.
Well, your parents, what do your parents do for work?
Sorry, could you say that?
Your parents, what do they do for work?
My mom's a secretary.
My mom works at a cleaners.
So working class people, so,
Yes,
right.
definitely.
And, I think that maybe that gets lost sometimes because of the public perception of, of Hollywood, right?
Yeah. Definitely, exactly.
What do you guys hope to do after you graduate? What do you hope to do?
College.
Yeah, go to college and hopefully just become a registered nurse or something in sociology.
I want to be a lawyer or a teacher, so this definitely, I've said a lot that I want to be a teacher, and whenever I tell people that, they always respond with, oh, teachers don't make a lot of money, or it seems to be a profession that people don't put as much passion and support into, and so this is really hitting home for me because it's something that I want to pursue. So.
You mentioned too that having a hard time, getting time to speak with their teachers, having a hard time to get to the counselors. I know one of the big concerns has been too that people that are not just your classroom teachers, but like specialists or special ed or counselors, that there's been a real shortage in the schools of those people that sometimes they're only in the school like one day a week or something like that.
Yeah, we're actually really lucky that we know our counselor personally. So during lunch or nutrition, when they're out just guarding, we can come and talk to them, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, come to my class." But usually it's just really hard. You have to make an appointment, and that's if you get on the list or something.
Exactly, each small learning community at our school has a counselor, so we're actually just lucky and grateful that we have that counselor all week, but you do have to get to know them because they have hundreds of students.
There was a strike in Chicago recently of charter school teachers, and one of the people speaking there said something I think really interesting, which is, when you think about a strike like this, a lot of people worry about the effect it's having on the students who are not in the classroom and so on, and that's certainly a concern, obviously. But the way he put it is, he said this is also a learning opportunity for the students as well, right? It's about learning how to fight for what matters, for what things that you care about and so on. Would you see that way?
I think that, yesterday we came to school and we didn't really do anything. We just sat in an auditorium or in the gym, and they tried to teach us a lesson, but it didn't work because our teachers weren't there. And today that we missed school, but we came here to support teachers, it's been a lot more educational and it's been a lot more productive than I have learned in the past day with just an administration at school.
No, yes, 100% what you, Lisa, said. There's two sides to the story. Like I said, it's the teachers out here we want to support them, and then it's the administrators inside. So it's causing a lot of stress for students to try to pick that side and see, well, which one am I going to get in trouble? Is it going to affect my graduation, like us that we have, we can only have 5 absences to graduate in white and 7 in red at the Hollywood Bowl. So that's something that us seniors are thinking about at this time.
That's what I heard about you. I heard about the rally earlier today that the schools are threatening the students if they don't show up, that it's going to be penalized.
Yes, that's true.
So that's a real fear.
That's a real thing, and we don't know if all the absences are going to actually affect that, if they're going to change the rule, but it's something that we're really thinking about because I want to come back tomorrow and support my teachers, but at the same time, I want to be able to graduate on the Hollywood Bowl stage.
That really says a lot, too, about the students I've seen out here, that they're really taking a risk when they're doing this.
Yes.
It's a real risk because we're putting our graduation on the line, but I feel like education in the future and education now is more important than what we have.
Well, I know your teachers really appreciate it, so thanks for being out here.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank
Thank
them.
you.
You're listening to Labor Express Radio News for people by working people. On Tuesday night, Labor Notes hosted a webinar with striking teachers so that people around the country could hear about the strike, its significance, and its progress directly from the UTLA rank and file. The following is a short excerpt from the webinar. You will hear in this excerpt first the voice of UTLA member Jillian Rusum and then UTLA member Mark Ramos. You'll also hear the voice of the moderator, Labor Notes staff member Barbara Mandileone. They discussed the importance of community and parent support to the strike and how the union was very deliberate in their efforts prior to the strike to reach out to parents and community groups to enlist their aid and input. It is interesting to note in this piece that the teachers emphasize that it is the fight over school privatization that has really mobilized the parents.
We have encouraged and done trainings and had conversations about making parent outreach a part of your school site union work. And we've been talking about that, luckily, for years. It did take really quite a while to transform that into feeling like a part of people's union work.
So, Mark, do you want to tell us can you speak a little bit to the issue of how the community was brought into the struggle?
Well, our teachers are also heavily involved in their community, are part of organizations, are part of churches, are part of all these things outside of teaching. And we try to pull on those. So at one point, it was maybe 5 months leading up to the strike, I was running trainings with community groups to partner up with the universities to send students, to send community members, to pick sites that they would all send community orgs to and students to support the teachers. And I know that some folks I've been working with have also been in contact with those, kind of creating catch structures, but with the community too, so that the community can connect with someone on staff or a UTLA member to get folks to specific areas that may need more support than others.
So Jillian was just talking about, and I'm really interested in this part as well, like the sort of direct political education that the union has done with members, that, talking about Eli Broad and his plan for the Los Angeles public schools, and being very direct about, like, there are people out there who are looking to undermine our unions, to undermine public education. Here's who they are. This is how this works. And I'm interested in how those conversations went with the members, because sometimes people will think that's too sort of far away and not immediate enough for membership. So I'm wondering about how it was that became so real for members, and certainly see it out in the rallies. Everybody's got signs about privatization, so it's been effective. And then as well, I'm curious about how you did that with the community. How was the community educated about the assault on the public schools, and come to understand this as a fight that is a fight against privatizers to preserve public education? Can you talk some about the political education in those different places?
So as far as our members, I think it's been easy for us to bring in that political education. We see it every day. Since 2008, like I said earlier, charter schools have grown 287% in LAUSD. What that means is less students, less funding. That means our public schools are surrounded by charter schools, and charter schools are being sucked, or are sucking students. Like at my old school, right before testing, all the special education students would come back to our schools because they would be kicked out by the charter schools. And then we would see this massive influx of students right before testing, or in the beginning of the school year. We don't see that many students. Because of those real effects of charter schools, it has been easier for us to talk about the privatization question because we feel it every day. And it gives because of that, it's easier for us to teach about that because it's in the teachers every day.
So that's got to be a real challenge then to work with the community around that as well, as especially given the degree to which parents are being, encouraged to think about charter schools as the place to go for their kids. So can any of you talk a little bit about the community education around the privatization efforts?
I would say a lot of our leading parent activists across the city are these parents who emerged to fight against a charter, coming in to take space at their campus. But then they realize, even if we fight so hard that we push the charter school out, it basically goes down the street and locates at another neighborhood school because this is allowed. And I just want to say, we did come up with one of the early trainings for parents on what is privatization, and it really hadn't been done before. Parents had been engaged in how to fight off a charter at their school, but not in the bigger picture. And so I just think part of the lesson is that parents are really interested in political education and understanding what is behind this. Who are these rich people? Who are these corporations that have this plan for this, my child's school? And so just don't underestimate the desire among parents and community to learn that stuff. And then those moms literally have completely run with it. They go to school to organize other moms. They take on corporate figures in our city. So it's a beautiful thing to see that flowering.
And I just want to sort of pull out for everybody that I think what I'm hearing, both for the union members, the educators, and for the parents and community around the political education, is that it started because around things that people were really experiencing. I think, Mark, you say it really clearly, people feel the lack of funds in their school. They feel that every day, that the resources are not there. The parents experience the co-location as taking resources away from their child in their child's school. And so the political education didn't just sort of come out of nowhere, but it grew from the struggles and was woven into the struggle, is what I'm hearing you saying.
I want to thank Labor Notes for making that audio available, and you can see the full webinar through a link on the Labor Express Facebook page at laborexpress.org. You're listening to Labor Express Radio's calls only English language labor news and current affairs radio program and our coverage of the LA teachers strike. Throughout the program, I have focused on the voices of rank-and-file members of UTLA and let them explain the reasons for this historic strike. It is, of course, the mission of Labor Express Radio, like our sister TV program Labor Beat, to be the voice of the rank-and-file. But of course, union leadership was out at the rallies and the picket lines as well. So I'll close with this speech by American Federation of Teachers AFT National President Randy Weingarten, who was in LA to join the rallies and the picket lines. Weingarten's presence speaks to the national impact of the strike. Randy spoke at the rally outside the California Charter School Association, the one with the poor sound system, unfortunately. It's a struggle to hear her clearly, but I think you can feel the enthusiasm in her speech and the crowd sounds you hear around her as tens of thousands of LA teachers and their supporters joined her in a chant.
First up, a shout out to everyone in the crowd who says, "We are here for our kids." Now, I did this yesterday, but I didn't do it so well. But there are a lot of people who can't hear the mic because I came from back there. So I'm going to do 3 things I want you to repeat after me. Teachers want what kids need. And kids can't wait. Okay, you ready? Teachers want. Teachers want. Teachers want. What kids need. What kids need. What kids need. And kids can't wait. And kids can't wait. Teachers want. What kids need. And kids can't wait. One more time. Teachers want. What kids need. And kids can't wait. charter teachers are. And it doesn't cost a dime to give people a voice. Charter teachers need the same voice as the 90% of other teachers in LA, and we are here standing with them as well. Number two, we need a rebalance in this city. Neighborhood public schools need to be the priority in the city of Los Angeles. No one is saying that there shouldn't be charter schools, but we need neighborhood public schools to have the guidance counselors, the nurses, the smaller class sizes that you all need. And are you willing to fight for that? Are you willing to fight for our kids? Are we willing to fight till we get the schools all kids deserve? And your national union, both of your national unions, so he's not here today, but the AFT and the NEA and the eyes of the nation are with you. Sí, se puede. Sí, se puede. Sí, se puede.
At the time of this program's recording on Saturday, the LA teacher strike continues. The statements of union leadership at last Thursday's press conference at the massive rally held in downtown LA on Friday indicate that things are likely to continue for some time, given there's little progress at the negotiating table on core issues. We will continue to cover the strike, of course, and you should check out the Labor Express Facebook page for updates at laborexpress.org. Again, that's laborexpress.org. That's all for tonight's program. Labor Express is a nonprofit 501c3 member of IBW Local 1220. The expressed on Labor Express are those of its producers, not those of the IBW. Labor Express is a production of the Committee for Labor Access in Chicago, the world capital of the labor movement. The songs are theme is called Worker Songs, written by Ed Pickford and recorded by the Dropkick Murphys. Tune in again next Sunday at 8 p.m. for another edition of Labor Express.
Yeah, this one's for the workers who